Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a software development instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate how to use branching and merging with Unity. So, what is branching? Branching is the process of creating a separate line of development in a Git repo. Essentially, it's kind of like if you've ever had a document, you've made multiple copies to keep previous versions. This is what branching is in Git and GitHub. It allows us to make changes without immediately affecting the main version of our project. We can use this to experiment with features or bug fixes or test ideas without damaging the stable version of the project. When in Git, when we created our repo, the default branch was called main, and we're going to create additional branches as we develop our project. Merging is the process of taking those changes in one branch and merging them back into another branch. And typically, what we will do is we will have a development branch that we will create a feature branch from, and then we will do our work in that feature branch and then merge it back into dev. And then we'll merge the dev branch back into a QA branch and the QA branch back into the main branch ultimately. And so basically merging is taking the work completed in one branch and applying it to another. And so we're going to see that we're going to do this a lot. We're going to create a feature branch, for example, add README, and then merge it back into our dev branch. So why do we need this? Well, it allows us to protect the stable version of our application. If you've ever written some code and wished that you could go back to the way it was before because it just kind of went the wrong direction, this is where this really helps us out. And the other thing is that eventually we're going to, as game developers, you're going to want to work with other developers. And if everyone is working on the same directory of an application, it can get very confusing very quickly. You need to have the skill and the ability to use branching and merging with Git or whatever source control you're using in order to work with other developers. It is not really optional. You have to have this kind of tooling and know how to use it well. So that's why I'm presenting this in this course. It's an integral part of being a software developer. And it also helps support testing before release. So we're going to see that in addition to our development branch, we're going to have a QA branch, which is where if we had a QA team, that's the version where the development team would say, okay, we're done with development. Please test this version. And the branches allow to make it clear what we want the test team to test. So we may not be doing a full QA effort on this, but we're going to be in the habit of creating a QA branch. And then once something passes QA, then you put it into main, and the main branch is where your releases are created from. So this also makes it easier to fix mistakes because we can go back and see the different versions. So this is an example of a branch workflow. So we're going to have the main branch. This is the stable branch. Generally, this is always going to be the one that always works. Then we have a QA branch, which is the version which is under test. And then the development branch. This is where we generally live as a development team. We're going to create feature branches from this dev branch, add features to the feature branch, and then merge them back into dev. And so we're going to see this cycle where we're creating feature branches and merging back into dev. Make a feature branch, merge back into dev. Feature branch, back into dev. And then once the dev branch is at a certain point, we might promote it to QA for evaluation. And then once it's past QA, we can put it into. So why does this matter in Unity projects especially? Well, Unity projects often involve a lot of scenes, scripts, materials, prefabs, audio, 3D models, and these files change frequently and may be edited by multiple developers. So without branches, developers could accidentally overwrite each other's work or break the project for the entire team. So by creating a feature branch, you ensure that the next person that grabs the dev branch doesn't have it, a half-done feature in there, and they start with some broken code, and then you have multiple people debugging the same things. So it is really critical for a team effort to have the ability to do this. Branching and merging also helps organize development safely and professionally. From an industry perspective, just as a software developer, not just game development in general, this is common. Game development, web development, mobile app development, every development effort which involves software professionally is going to have some kind of source control being used and some kind of branching and merging strategy. So learning branching and merging is an important skill to be a real-world software developer and to be able to work on a team. So our objective for this tutorial will be to create QA and dev branches from the main branch, create a feature branch. We're going to add a README file just as something to add. Then we're going to merge that back into the dev branch. We're going to then make another change to our README and merge that again from into dev, and then we're going to merge dev into QA and then QA into main to kind of simulate the whole development process with branching and merging. Okay, so here I am in Unity Hub, and there's my application, my game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this and show it in Explorer, because I want to open this up in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open up this folder, open up with code. And so here we are. We're on the main branch. So right now I can go look at this online. And this is what I have in GitHub. We have just one branch. You can see all the branches here that are on GitHub. And what I want to do is I want to make a QA branch. So if I click on this and I create new branch, it's going to ask me for a name. I'm going to call it QA. And now that makes a QA branch. I'm going to click publish on that. And let's go look at that one. And we can see now we have two branches, a main and a QA branch. And then from the QA branch, I'm going to make a dev branch. So I'm going to click on this. Now, if I just type dev here, it'll actually also make a new branch. And then I'll publish that branch. And so now we can see we have a main, a dev, and a QA branch. So those are the typical primary branches that we have in an application. Different teams may use different names for those branches. But in general, you have a branch that the development team is working on, a branch that the QA team uses, and then one that the operations people are deploying from, which is usually the main branch. Or trunk, sometimes it's called that. So now what we're going to do is, let's say we wanted to make a change. And in this case, we're just going to a README folder in here. So I'm going to create I start off if I'm going to make a feature, and I'm going to say feature add README. And I'm going to go ahead and publish. But then I'm going to go in here and I'm going to add a readme.md. This is called a markdown file. And I'm not going to put anything in it initially. I'm just going to have that file and I'm going to do a commit. So added readme. Now, when you do a commit, realize that's only affecting the local repo. If I go look at this feature branch online, you'll notice that there's no readme in here yet. When I sync changes, that's when it puts it up on the web. I'm going to refresh this. And now we can see there's the readme that we made. There's nothing in it yet. Now, if I go back to dev, so notice here we have the readme file. If I open up the dev branch, notice there is no readme because that change is on that feature branch I created. In fact, it tells you here this file doesn't exist. And if I go to the dev branch in online, There's a README here, but if I switch over to the dev branch here, it doesn't exist. So that's kind of the powerful thing about using branches and merges is now my dev branch has not been modified. If someone else was working on the dev branch, they could branch off of the dev branch, and they would be branching off of the way it was before I started working on these changes. So how do we bring that into the dev branch, that change we did? Well, what we can do is, now that we're in the dev branch, we can come down here, go to branch, and we can click on merge, and I can merge that feature branch. And once I do that, now we have the README file in the dev branch. Now, I have not updated that. I haven't pushed that change to GitHub yet, so we see it's not in here. It's not in here either. So it's not in here yet. I sync the changes. So that I've just pushed those changes to dev. If I refresh this, I can now see there it is in the dev. Now I'm going to make another branch, and it's going to be another feature. I'll publish that one. And it's telling you actually here, hey, it's letting you know these changes have been made. And so this is the new branch. It's the same, it has everything the same as the other ones. There's nothing in the README yet. In the blog post, I have some stuff to type in here. So I'm just going to go into this and type this stuff in. And so this is Markdown if you haven't used it before. Basically, it gives you the ability to format your output. And so I update my README. When I go look at my source control, you'll see that there's the change. I'm going to commit this. I'll commit that. Again, if I refresh this, still not there. When I sync changes, it now has the README file with all of its content. If I go to the dev branch, the README file is still empty. How do I get those changes brought back into the dev branch? Well, I will switch to the dev branch, see that it's empty, and then I will merge that change, sync those changes. So now you can see the README in the dev branch has all the changes, and then I can see that online it now has those changes. So the cycle ends up becoming: start with a dev branch, create a feature branch, do your changes. Once you're satisfied with them, merge them back into the dev branch. And that's generally your normal cycle. And then when it comes time to deploy, or in your case, perhaps if you're in a course, time to turn it in and you want to turn it in on the main branch, we would go to the QA branch and merge the dev branch into the QA branch. Notice we have two changes because we did two things to it. You might take a look at your code in the QA branch, make sure that everything's the way you want it to be. Maybe test it. And then from the QA branch, once you're fully satisfied, go to the main branch, merge the QA branch into the main branch. And then that main branch would be the production branch. This would be if we were having a game that was being deployed in a store somewhere, that's the one that would go into the store. Or if it was an online type of game, it would be deployed through the web, it would be deployed to the web. This is the main branch, is where your releases come out of. So that's the basic process for using branches. And then what you do is you go back to your dev branch, and generally you sit here until you get time to make a feature branch, implement your changes, and then merge them back in. So that's the basic process for working with branches. Thank you very much.